Guilty Gear is a badass, beloved fighting game series that's been keeping it metal since 1998. The gameplay, music, characters, and album cover stages are blazing with style that can be best described as heavy. Over the years, each new game gave us a glimpse into its world. But if you're like me, at some point you probably had this moment. This is the coolest shit I've ever seen. I have no idea what's going on. Nope, it's not just you. With the newest game, Guilty Gear Strive, just around the corner, the desire to catch up on the lore before the next chapter begins is real. There is a crazy amount of things happening in this story, in so many bits and pieces, spread across a collection of endings, manga, light novels, drama CDs, and yes, even pachinko machines, that it's an almost unreasonable task to put the pieces together. Almost. I finally finished. I've done the legwork, and I found that one untranslated overture art book page containing that short story with the one important detail, so that you don't have to. I put all my findings together into this timeline of events, double-checked it with the lore masters, and triple-checked it with that man himself. But before we strive to understand revelations, signs, accent cores, midnight carnivals, and the missing links by your side, we first have to understand how the world came to an end. Welcome to Heaven or Hell.
Heaven or Hell. Get ready to rock.
Mankind has succeeded in achieving the dream of a natural, limitless energy supply. It was the dawn of the age of magic. It was the end of history. 1221 AD, the end of the Fifth Crusade of the Holy Roman Empire. An army of crusaders is massacred after failing to take Jerusalem. One knight almost escapes on horseback, but is hunted and killed with a volley of arrows. Awakening suddenly in a mysterious cage of mirrors and birds of prey, his body is pierced endlessly until he experiences the maximum human pain threshold before blacking out. The knight reawakens in the world of the living, reborn in a pool of his own blood. Rejected by Valhalla, he finds that he can no longer age and no longer die. 1945 AD. After World War II, the United Nations is founded. 1956 AD, the International Police Force is founded. 1998 AD, a descendant of vampire lineage named Slayer exists in this world as the last of his kind. He creates a secret society known as the Assassin's Syndicate. Its primary goal is to punish those outside of the law and to maintain social order by removal of corrupt leaders. They live by a code.
一つ、自らの生死を臨機分かたず思考の拉致がいと置く必殺の意志。二つ、その必殺の意志を形とする練り上げられた技術とその誇り。三つ、真に戦いを支配するのは意志、誇り、勝敗。生死でもなく、基地にあって人を動かし、優位に立って人をとどめる。それがダンディズム。
1999 AD, the dawn of revival. On December 31st at midnight, there was concern that a Y2K bug would lead to problems with old computers. What wasn't expected, however, was all technology suddenly becoming erratic for hours, followed by an unknown entity attempting to manifest itself into reality. What was being birthed at this time is unclear, but all of humanity felt the coming of a divine will. Before this god could manifest, however, it suddenly and inexplicably stopped. Stricken with an innate fear that this was a near-extinction event, humanity would never trust in technology again. With this sudden technophobia came the decline of civilization, but in its darkest hour, mankind was saved by the arrival of the apostles. Emerging from parts unknown, 5 powerful mages arrive and bring hope in the form of knowledge. Humanity is introduced to the concept of magic, a limitless, clean source of energy that can be used to replace old reliance on technology. The apostles spend a decade teaching the ways of magic to all nations through their established organization, the Sanctus Maximus Populi. This newly formed global authority helps establish magic infrastructure across the whole world and introduces the magic particle theory, or MANA, to the sciences. The structure of magic can be assessed, researched, and practically applied to fuel everyday life. The old way of life can not only be resumed, but surpassed, and thus begins the Age of Magic. The UN formally declares that magic is the new standard and hereby bans all analog technology from being used, labeling it black technology, a concentrated effort to dismantle the remnants of old machinery and computers begins under the authority of the International Police Force. Not all nations are in compliance with the black tech contraband, however, as China initially rejects, but later joins. India, on the other hand, remains in disagreement and partially withdraws from the UN. The theory of magical science. As the scientific method can be applied to magical phenomena, the continued study of its nature leads to a breakdown of magic into 6 known types: fire, lightning, wind, water, light, and ki. Most human beings are capable of using at least one type. Ki magic is notable in particular, as it is raw energy powered by the spirit of the individual. Though it is the basis for all other types, ki is the least understood and most difficult to use. Ultimately, the research of the apostles results in the provision of 660 spells fit for human use. 6 are deemed unfit, and are thus forbidden. With their work done, the apostles take on a less active role by forming an advisory group known as the Conclave. Eventually, they are no longer seen or heard from in society. 2014 AD. The Gear Project begins. Originally called the Ecosystem Evolution Project, a group of scientists in a certain country under Vince McDonnell begin top-secret research into genetically altering and evolving humans on a cellular level, using the theory of magical science to fuse magic with DNA. It is theorized that through this method, mankind can advance to new heights. Though the country is not explicitly named, it is heavily implied to be the US. Moving forward, this assumption will be maintained. 3 notable scientists are involved with the project: Frederick Bulsara, Aria Hale, and That Man. The 3 met in college and became best friends, sometimes discussing philosophy. Frederick and Aria fall in love. Though he was originally assigned to research a powerful spell known as Saint Oratorio, Frederick was instead transferred to the Gear Project. 2015 AD. The development of Gear Cell theory is complete. That Man submits his findings to the US government under the conditions that 1. All data must be used peacefully and must not be weaponized. 2. All staff must have their well-being guaranteed. And 3. These conditions must be made known to the public to assure continuing government compliance. 2016 AD. Aria reveals that she's been diagnosed with an incurable illness 2 years prior. Her case is known as a TP infection and is terminal. Frederick and That Man divert all attention to finding a cure or a way to preserve her until one is found. But Aria has accepted her fate and stops them. She wants to live out her remaining days with Frederick. He continues searching for the cure, but ultimately fails. 2016 AD. The first gear is created. As the project begins to show progress, numerous countries develop an interest in the project's potential results and begin contributing towards its funding. After promising results are seen on animals, the first major human clinical trial begins. Fusing stabilized gear cells with human cells, a new life form called a gear is created. It is later learned that the first human gear test subject was in fact Frederick, and that the process was carried out by That Man. Upon his awakening, the entire facility is destroyed and the subject escapes. This results in the Gear Project being shut down, with all files being classified A+. All involved personnel disappear. Shortly after, Frederick invents a gear cell suppressor device, allowing him to seal his true gear form. He develops it into a headband that he can wear at all times, allowing him to appear human. 2026 AD. India completes secret construction on an ultra-dreadnought-class airship. In rejection of the Sanctus Maximus Populi, all those who embrace and preserve technology board the ship and formally declare their independence. Thus, the Imperial Empire of Zep is formed, but it is done on the backs of a slave underclass. 2042 AD. The Gear Project revived. With the US economy and political influence in steep decline, the government decides to revisit the Gear Project, but this time expressly for military purposes. 2045 AD. That man rejoins the project under an alias. The newly revived project quickly tries to produce a gear as a viable bioweapon. This fails due to an inability to control the gear life form. 2065 AD. The first combat-ready gear is completed. At this point, gear science has progressed significantly. While a gear is not a species in and of itself, many variant classes can be created depending on the species used as a source for the gear conversion process. These variations would be classified years later into types such as regular, toxic, flying, large, and more. Of note are city-sized gears, categorized as Megadeth class, which are capable of mass eradication of large populations. A defining trait of gears created based on animal DNA is that they continue to display sentience, and in rare instances, sapience as well. Their behavior is animalistic and instinct-driven. In accordance with the intended design, they do not possess their own individual wills or long lifespans. Mass production of militarized gears begins. Shipments are deployed to the nation's allies worldwide. Due to espionage and stolen data, other nations eventually begin producing their own gears as well. During this production process, however, numerous research facilities are sabotaged and destroyed by an unknown assailant. Authorities refer to the perpetrator of these attacks as Bad Guy. Some years later, Frederick discovers that man's imminent design plans. He begins recovering information on the Saint Oratorio project and uses it to create an anti-gear weapon known as the Outrage. It functions as a magic amplifier with no predetermined limits on the output of generated mana, potentially leading to global catastrophe if not regulated properly. Due to the danger of this power, and the difficulty in handling it himself, Frederick subdivides the weapon into 8 components for safety, but deems the creation of this weapon necessary to preemptively prepare for the imminent creation of the first perfect gear. The culmination of that man's research and creations is complete. Command Class Gear 01, capable of injecting her programming into all other gear life forms and replacing their lack of will with her own. The power to control all gears, the US government names it Justice. Upon activation, for unclear reasons, Justice loses control and annihilates the entire island nation of Japan. On suspicions of his involvement in the catastrophe, that man is deemed a war criminal. Clearly designated as a threat to the planet, it is determined that Justice must be destroyed. Justice defends herself by rebelliously taking control of all gears and declaring war on humanity. Thus begins the 100-year war known as the Crusades. The Sacred Order of Holy Knights is founded by the UN as a force representing no country, fighting for all humanity. War is declared on all gears. For the next century, most records of world history and events are lost to war. Though it isn't known how, the Order comes into possession of the Outrage components. Each is henceforth referred to as the 8 Sacred Treasures. The Fire Seal Sword, the Thunder Seal Sword, the Zessen Windfans, the Flashing Fan, the Dominator, Baikal, an unnamed dagger in Slayer's possession, and an unknown 8th component. A secretive government organization that will eventually be known as the Post-War Administration Bureau is created as a deterrent against criminal activity. They are responsible for creating an international bounty hunting system and work alongside the IPF, and less publicly, the Assassin's Guild. Though records of what took place during the Crusades are lost, the names of some notable individuals are known. 2093 AD. Cliff Undersen is born in Switzerland. At a young age, he's nearly killed by a gear, but is saved by a mysterious stranger. From that day, he's inspired to do the same for others, and joins the ranks of the Holy Order. Through distinguished service, he earns the position of Commander. 2120 AD. A Megadeth-class gear, Hydra, destroys London. Cliff single-handedly fights the Megadeth for 7 consecutive days and nights. With his sword, the Dragon Slayer, he cuts off 3 of its heads and defeats it long enough for the Order's reinforcements to arrive and seal it away. Years later, a village is built atop its dormant body. 2127 AD. Cliff eventually adopts a son and names him Testament. Despite being a kind-hearted pacifist, Testament joins the Order against Cliff's wishes in hopes of one day becoming a knight worthy of succeeding his father. During an undisclosed mission, Testament is reported killed in action. Though his body is never officially found, it is later learned that the Post-War Administration Bureau obtained the remains and subjected them to a number of experiments, including an unknown gear conversion and revival process. Upon awakening, as a means of testing combat ability, he is forced to kill former Sacred Order allies. Shortly after this, like all other gears, his mind is dominated by justice. 2140 AD. Cliff is forced to fight the gear that was once his son and mortally wounds him. He then forces the Post-War Administration Bureau to shut down all gear experimentation. They appear to do so. After attempts to use gears against each other ends in disaster, the Post-War Administration Bureau researches alternative anti-gear weaponry using the 6 forbidden magics. This results in the creation of 6 parasitic bioweapons known as the Forbidden Beasts. Gears are noted to strangely respond to them as instinctual enemies. While generally effective in suppression, the unsustainable nature of these bioweapons requires their hosts to not only sacrifice something great to incubate and wield them, but eventually sacrifice themselves to the beasts, ultimately, once they awaken. During the war, Cliff fights Justice 16 times to a standstill. Neither one is able to defeat the other. 2162 AD. A mother is killed in a gear attack on France, leaving behind a boy named Kai Kiske. Months later, during another gear attack, Cliff and his young partner Tyr find Kai wandering the battlefield as a lone war orphan, surviving on instinct. Cliff asks what a child is doing in a place like this. Kai replies that his parents are dead and that he wants to fight instead of running away. He had been wandering alone for nearly 6 months. Cliff gives Kai an imperative: survive the next 5 years, then return to him if he still wishes to fight gears. 2167 AD. Kai Kiske joins the Sacred Order of Holy Knights. By age 14, Kai has quickly become a prodigy swordsman and displays mastery of lightning magic. By age 50, he is promoted to the rank of captain and has earned the respect and admiration of his fellow knights. Sometime later, a mission goes wrong and an entire platoon is killed by a gear, save for Kai. Traumatized and racked by survivor's guilt, he etches the word hope into his buckle to remind himself that nothing in this world can be done without hope. 2168 AD. Slayer retires from the Assassin's Guild in disgust as it no longer upholds his founding principles. Rumors spread of an unknown lone wolf bounty hunter out in the battlefield destroying gears ruthlessly on his own. Slayer eventually meets this bounty hunter and finds himself impressed by the passion burning like a sun in his path. Slayer decides to give him the nickname Sol. Brash, unrefined, and antisocial, Sol's reputation for destroying gears en masse precedes him. Cliff recognizes this as the man who saved him in his childhood and spares no expense tracking him down to recruit him to the Holy Order. As Sol appears to only be interested in destroying gears, he accepts. 2172 AD. Order Sol joins the Sacred Order of Holy Knights. Despite joining, he often disobeys the chain of command, preferring to do things his own way. Fellow knights treat him with little more than ill will. Despite initially being impressed seeing Kai in action the first time, their clashing personalities and ideals just aren't compatible. In a symbolic rebellion against Kai and his rigid orders, Sol etches the word free into his buckle. Other knights, inspired by this, and Kai's hope, begin following suit with their own words. One such example is the word pride etched into the buckle of the young knight Leo Whitefang. 2173 AD. Kai challenges Sol to a duel. Sol accepts.
口を開けるかくたばる。
かけては通れんぞ。
During the duel, it becomes clear to Sol that Kai is holding back, fighting Sol as if he were human. Kai loses. Thinking that he did not take the fight seriously, Sol is insulted. 2173 AD. The Battle of Rome. In response to a distress signal, Kai commands a fleet of airships on a rescue mission to the blitzed city of Rome, currently under siege by a massive army of Gears. Overrun, the knights call for retreat, but Kai remains steadfast, knowing that there's more survivors that can be saved. Sol arrives just in time to save Kai from succumbing to his fate. After their retreat, Sol encounters Justice alone and is soundly defeated. Amused by this reckless human, however, Justice spares his life. Realizing his weakness, Sol decides to steal the Fire Seal and quit the Order. Kai attempts to stop him in the act, but is beaten again. Before he leaves, Cliff confronts Sol, but sends him off with a blessing, saying that he intended to give Sol the sword anyway. Cliff then tells Kai to keep this incident a secret, and decides to entrust the future to these two. Thinking of them and confronting guilt over the child soldiers that have been used in this war, Cliff decides to step down from his position, giving 16-year-old Kai Kisk leadership of the Order and the Thunder Seal. 2175 AD. The Final Battle. The 17th and final battle between Cliff Underson and Justice begins, but this time, with the help of successor Kai Kisk and the Thunder Seal, they're able to drive her back. A weakened Justice retreats, but before she can escape, Sol Badguy appears before her again, now wielding the Fire Seal. As they fight, Justice realizes that the man standing before her is a Gear and attempts to control him. It fails. In rage, she calls him a traitorous flame of corruption. Sol unleashes said flames, incapacitating her long enough for the remaining knights of the Holy Order to flank and use a post-war administration bureau developed sealing spell to lock her in a dimensional prison. Without a command Gear, the remaining Gear army goes completely dormant immediately. The Crusades are over. 2177 AD. The post-Holy War era. Global damage has left the post-Crusade world almost entirely unrecognizable. Various areas have become stateless no man's land. The remains of the EU and Russia consolidate to form the United Kingdom of Illyria. The country that was originally the source of all Gear production is decimated. There are survivors, but most cities are in complete ruins. What government exists is heavily in the pocket of the Assassin's Guild, which has risen to political aspirations and is also in possession of a number of forbidden beasts. All remaining destroyed or stateless areas are placed under jurisdiction of the UN's International Police Force, with the exception of South Africa. At this point, the Post-War Administration Bureau is officially deployed to undo as much global damage as possible. The surviving Japanese people are placed into colonies, protected by magic barriers and guarded by the IPF, with a no-entry, no-exit policy. The Sacred Order of Holy Knights is disbanded. Kai, unable to adjust to normal life, joins the IPF. Cliff retires, leaving Holy Order days behind him for good. He does not stop martial arts training, however, and eventually becomes the first non-Japanese person to use and master key magic. 2180 AD. The Missing Link. 5 years after the Crusades, a rumor starts going around the population. Justice will return. World leaders determine this to be a credible threat, evidenced by the unexpected erosion of the walls within Justice's dimensional prison. With great concern, the UN announces the Second Sacred Order Selection Tournament, an event to find the most capable recruits for the Second Sacred Order of Holy Knights, those that will stand ready should Justice ever return. There are strange rules to the tournament, however. Incarcerated criminals and even children are permitted entry. Bloodshed was allowed, but strangest of all was the champion's prize, a single wish, any wish at all. The tournament begins. Many of the strongest fighters of the post-war era are attracted to the event, each in search of their own truths. Dr. Baldhead, When a little girl dies on his operating table, a disgraced doctor from China snaps and becomes a serial killer. However, once he learns that the patient was killed in a conspiracy to steal his research into resurrection healing, he takes on a new identity to save as many lives as possible. May. A secretly Japanese sky pirate and her crew are reunited with their jailed captain, Johnny Sforty. They soar the skies in Meiship, a stolen black tech airship from Zep. The Template. A powerful slave warrior of Zep is freed by his sergeant, Gabriel. Together, they successfully rise up and overthrow the oppressive noble class in full revolt, bringing democracy to Zep. Chip Zano. An American war orphan and dealer for the Assassin's Guild. When his drug dealing turned to drug abuse, the guild sends a ninja, Tsuyoshi, to kill the boy. Unable to do so, Tsuyoshi, actually a double agent for the IPF, trains Chip to escape his demons by turning to the way of the ninja. When his master is in turn assassinated by the guild for betrayal, Chip is nearly consumed by his desire for revenge, but finds solace in the teachings that saved his life. Millia Rage. From Russia, a trained assassin from childhood, found and forced to wield the forbidden beast Angra. After escaping from an abusive relationship with Zato 1 and deserting the guild that forced this life upon her, she is determined to destroy both, but is wounded during her fight with Zato. Zato 1 loses control of his power and escapes. Zato 1, from Spain, the new ruthless leader of the Assassin's Guild, strays from Slayer's original Assassin's Code in favor of money, political influence, and manipulation. Responsible for the death of Dr. Baldhead's patient, he sacrificed his sight for the forbidden beast Eddie, who has now consumed him whole. Axel Lowe. An English pacifist born in the 20th century that suddenly finds himself slipping through time from 1998 to 2178 for unclear reasons. Forced to leave his girlfriend behind, Axel searches for a way home, but has no idea where his next time slip will lead. Baiken. A Japanese swordswoman raised in the colonies. She lost an arm, an eye, and both parents to a gear attack at a young age, but remembers the image of that man surrounded by flames and his gear creations on that night. From that day, she sought vengeance. Though she does not enter the tournament, she uncovers the truth about it and is currently wanted for escaping from the colonies. Soul Bad Guy burns his way through all the competition to the finals, where it is revealed that the entire tournament is a lie orchestrated by Testament, Cliff's adopted son. Somehow, he is survived by an unseen hand. Unlike most mindless dormant gears, Testament recovered his memories after confronting his father, but his mind was still under her influence. He needed one final sacrifice of the strongest warrior in order to break the seal and reawaken justice into this world once again. Soul defeats him, but in his defeat, Testament realizes that he may still serve her, in the end by using his own blood as a sacrifice to open the dimensional prison. Justice is once again unleashed upon the world. Soul and Justice fight. During the battle, Soul's headband is ripped off, revealing a magical seal on his forehead that is identical to the one shared by all gears. Justice, seeing this, is perplexed as she once again is unable to control his mind. Soul reveals that the reason he cannot be controlled is because even though Justice is a Type 01 command class gear, he is the prototype gear that all others were based on. He was Frederick Bulsara. With a massive explosion, Justice is defeated, leaving nothing but a shell behind. With her dying words, Justice says that she wishes the three of us could talk again one last time. Realizing that Justice is connected to his past, Soul Bad Guy swears that he's going to kill that man, betrayer of his own kind and slayer of his own kin. Soul Bad Guy is the guilty gear.